Welcome. Scott here. Today I bring you another Black Clover mobile guide. Let's proceed to talk about the featured daily boss. It seems that the either upgraded skill effect and extra passive will change from day to day. The boosted mage will also change from day to day. So don't be surprised if the strategy that you have used previously won't work when you do the run today. Now let's proceed to talk about the featured daily boss. You will be fighting the Diamond Kingdom's Ladros. He is a red attacker mage. Before I go through the upgraded skill effect and extra passive, let me go through his base kit first. His skill 1 is a single target attacking ability. Upon attacking a target that has been inflicted with burn, he will convert the burn into instant damage. He will also inflict extend burn duration on the enemy if they are taking burn damage. His skill 2 is an AoE attacking ability. He will inflict 2 instances of continuous burn damage on all targets. If the target's currently mobility is equal or higher than 50%, it will inflict an additional continuous burn damage. Upon attacking, if there is at least one enemy taking continuous burn damage, attacks after granting a defense penetration level 3 buff for 2 turns. Similar to other skill 2, the ability has 3 turn cooldown phase. His special is an AoE attacking ability. Upon attacking, if there are at least 2 enemies that are taking continuous burn damage, he will grant himself an increased defense level 2 buff for 2 turns. He will inflict stun status ailment on any enemy for 1 turn if they are already taking 3 instances of burn continuous damage upon executing. The damage will also scales off the number of active burn when he uses the attack. He will inflict an increased damage taken debuff that scales off the number of burn stacks. For every burn that is present on the target, Ladros will inflict 30% increased damage taken debuff upon executing the attack. He has a special passive. Upon attacking, if barrier is present on at least one enemy, he will grant himself a 100% increased damage dealt buff. Like other bosses, he is immune to silence, total silence and status ailments such as stun or freeze. He is also immune to reduced mobility, mobility depletion, and reduced speed. On top of his default skill abilities and passive, he will also gain an upgraded skill effect or extra passive. This will change from day to day of the boss fights. For today's boss buff, these are the following effects. Upon using his skill 1, for every instance of continuous burn damage an enemy is taking, he will grant himself a 15% mobility buff. Upon using his skill 2, for each enemy that is taking continuous burn damage, he will grant himself a 15% mobility buff. Upon using his special, it will have a 50% chance of inflicting total silence on the enemy for 2 turns. As you go higher the difficulty level, he will gain extra passive. From part 4 onwards, upon using skill 1, he will additionally inflict an extended burn duration by a turn debuff on enemies of the same attribute or enemies who are at attribute disadvantage. From part 7 onwards, he will gain a 75% reduced damage taken buff upon being attacked by an enemy of the same attribute or enemy who is at an attribute disadvantage. For part 10, upon attacking, if all target enemies are taking continuous burn damage, he will grant himself a 30% increased all ATK buff. This buff can be stacks up 3 times. The 2 boosted mages for today is Kaito and Swimsuit Gauche. This is an ultra restrictive fight as you need 2 key utility to handle the boss mechanics, buff dispel and damage over time immunity. For buff dispel, you can use Rill, party costume Noelle, party Nozzle, third area, spatial mage Finral. For damage over time immunity, you can use Grey or Swimsuit Gauche. For damage over time's instance removal, you can use Swimsuit Charmy, party Mimosa or Clover Academy Noelle. With the mechanics explained, let me proceed with my run showcase.
It's murder time!
You'd better thank me.
Yeah! It's murder time!
You better thank me.
Yeah! It's murder time!
You're no match for me.